Now, I never thought I would say this, but I think I'm actually starting to love the iPhone Air. Can someone please call my therapist? And I do not say that lightly because, to be honest, I didn't really have the highest expectations for these ultra-thin phones that Apple and Samsung tried and epically failed to try and push in 2025. I mean, Samsung pulled out of that train faster than your dad, and now that I think about it, if he's your dad, he probably didn't pull out fast enough. Point is, no one asked for these ultra-thin phones, especially on the Android side. Check out my review of the S25 Edge if you want more insight on that. But Apple and the iPhone Air are a little bit different since Apple and their devices tend to exist over here in their own trillion-dollar bubble. And as someone who resides in that bubble, at least for his daily driver, I have to say I think I might have been looking at the iPhone Air wrong this entire time. And after using it for a little while, I honestly think this might be my new daily driver going forward. My name is Ty Tech. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, send some of those hype points my way if you guys could be so kind. And let's take a look at the iPhone Air. Now, as I said earlier, I didn't expect much from the iPhone Air when it was announced and released back in September. I honestly only bought it because I figured some iPhone users would be, at the very least, intrigued enough to make making some content around it worth it, like some case reviews or something like that. But about a month ago, I came across a TikTok talking about the need for a case on the iPhone Air, and it honestly made me want to give the iPhone Air a fair try as my daily driver. That and not wanting to waste $1,000. And as I was holding it after switching from my 17 Pro Max, it made me realize that the iPhone Air might just be the perfect iPhone for someone like me, and probably a lot of you guys too. The feeling was a bit similar to when I used and reviewed the iPhone 16e last year, and it made me realize that my use cases were a lot simpler than I originally thought, and were perfectly satisfied by a phone that was $600 cheaper than the iPhones I normally buy. The iPhone Air is honestly in that same category for me. Of course, the main selling point of the iPhone Air is its ultra-thin, ultra-slim, lightweight design, which was no surprise the best change coming from an iPhone 17 Pro Max, because the iPhone Air is genuinely the easiest and most effortless iPhone to use from a perception standpoint. The iPhone Air is about 20 to 30% lighter than either of the iPhone 17 Pro models. And that weight reduction when using the iPhone Air day to day is a difference so perceptible that going back to my iPhone 17 Pro Max or even my iPhone 17 Pro felt like a chore.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
It was so much better to be able to keep in touch with my family, watch my YouTube videos, play my games, and scroll through social media without feeling like my hand was going to fall off from exhaustion. That might not be a big deal to some of you guys watching this video right now, but as someone who has the muscle definition of SpongeBob, on a good day, the more weightless in-hand use was a very, very welcome change for me, especially when carrying my phone around in my pocket, even with a case on it. And that's one of the biggest questions for anyone looking at the iPhone Air. You know, this phone is so comfortable, it's so thin, it's so weightless. Do I put a case on it? Should I get a case for it? Do I even need a case for it? And unfortunately, my answer to that question is a resounding
Yeah!
yes. I would heavily recommend having a case on the iPhone Air, at least of some kind, because whilst the thinness and slimness of this phone are very nice and very welcome, the glossy polished aluminum frame doesn't give your hands much to grip onto compared to other iPhones, even those with titanium frames themselves, which leaves it a bit more on the slippery side. So yes, I would heavily recommend having a case on your iPhone Air if you're looking to pick one up, and if you want one that's still going to protect your iPhone Air without adding too much bulk to it. I've been using the Unicorn Beetle Grip from Supcase on the iPhone Air. It adds amazing drop protection to your iPhone Air without adding much more weight to the phone itself. Comes with a built-in kickstand and MagSafe, and you get protection around your cameras, charging port, and your front screen. Next, we gotta talk about this front display, because the front display is honestly the perfect size for day-to-day use. I don't know if any of you guys have felt the same way, but since the 16 Pro Max, it just seems like that particular model of iPhone is just too big at this point.
But that picture's kind of freaking me out.
He's got a great body.
He's so big. He's so massive.
Like the 6.3-inch screen on the 17 and 17 Pro are a little bit too small, and the 6.9-inch screen of the newer Pro Max models are just gigantic. I can't even with these things sometimes. But the 6.5-inch screen on the Air is perfectly comfortable in almost every single case. It's still big enough that I can enjoy all the social media and content that I engage with, but it's still small enough that I can reach each top corner of the iPhone without struggling. Plus, it's the same quality display that you would get on the 17 Pro and Pro Max with all the same features, right down to using Ceramic Shield 2 for better drop and crack resistance. But at the end of the day, this is still an iPhone, so even though it might be thinner than your typical iPhone, it is just as capable as your typical iPhone, even a Pro model iPhone. It uses the A19 Pro chip, the same used inside the 17 Pro and Pro Max, just with a little less graphic processing power, but it is just as fluid, just as snappy, and just as fast as either of those iPhones. Plus, you still get iMessage, you still get FaceTime, Face ID, AirDrop, and all the same apps you normally use, and their developer priority. To be quite frank, it's kind of crazy that a phone that's half the size of a Pro Max is just as powerful and just as capable. It's fucking ridiculous. And here's where you have to talk about the first elephant in the room. And I have to preface this by saying that this entire section is speaking about my day-to-day experiences with the iPhone Air relative to the iPhone that I normally use. So I'll go more in depth about the capabilities of the cameras on the iPhone Air at the end of this video. But as someone who typically mains a Pro model iPhone with all their amazing camera features and capabilities, I don't really use them. I'm not a huge photo taker. So while there may be only one camera on the iPhone Air, yes, only one, it still produces beautiful photos and videos. This is an iPhone after all. Saying an iPhone has great cameras is like saying the sky is blue or Bad Bunny is a US citizen. It's common knowledge at this point. But as someone who's admittedly a pretty casual photo taker, the 48 megapixel Fusion main camera still produces photos with amazing detail preservation, great dynamic range, and that true-to-life color processing that Apple is known for at this point. Like, look at how chocolatey your boy looks in this photo right here. The portrait photos are perfect, and the separation between the foreground and the background is sharp as shit. It's not even funny. The selfies are very solid too. Shout out to Link's dad from Good Mythical Morning. Selfie videos and video performance in general are good on the iPhone Air. Like I said at the beginning of this video, guys, phones like the 16E and the iPhone Air have really helped me understand how I use my smartphone. And whilst having the 3 lenses on the iPhone Pro models is, cool and all, I don't use them enough to make the money that I pay for those cameras worth it. And I think that's something that I'm going to take into account when I upgrade next, and so should you if you're using a Pro model iPhone. Here comes the second elephant, probably the biggest one, ironically, and that is battery life. Obviously, a thinner body means a smaller battery overall, so that's a Motorola. However, getting through an entire day's worth of use, keeping in touch with my friends and family, watching content, scrolling through social media, using navigation and Bluetooth, I would finish my day with about 10 to 20% left after days that typically started between 9:30 and 10 and finished after 11. So, like I said, not the best battery life here, especially for a smartphone that costs $1,100 after taxes, but it was enough to handle and satisfy my battery needs day to day. And like I said, after evaluating my use cases with a phone like the iPhone Air for a while, that's honestly more than enough for someone like me. And probably a few of you guys too. Overall, I think I was a bit too hard on the iPhone Air. I really do. Compared to this block of
cheese
that I usually carry around every day, using the iPhone Air was, like I said before, the most effortless smartphone experience that I've ever had. Sometimes it just feels good to simplify things a little bit, but when you make that thing so light and weightless, as well as just as powerful and just as capable as a much bigger iPhone, I genuinely feel like I could use the iPhone Air as my daily driver for a long time and have a very, very good experience with it. Now, am I going to do that? No. Do I have a newfound love and appreciation of the iPhone Air? Yes. Yes, I do. Could I use it as my daily driver long term and be perfectly satisfied and have all my needs met? Yes! Absolutely. Could I also do that with any iPhone that is far cheaper and better in every conceivable way? Also, yes. The entire crux of the iPhone Air is that it's an iPhone, but thin. But once you take off the rose-colored glasses that you might have for this phone simply because of the form factor, there is nothing about the iPhone Air that makes this phone worth $1,000 except for that logo, the apple with the bite taken out of it. First off, this isn't even Apple's thinnest device ever. Let's get that out of the way just at the front, because the thinnest iPhone ever was actually the iPhone 5 in every iPhone that used that body, because Apple doesn't include the dimensions of the camera bump. I'm not calling it a camera plateau in the full dimensions of the iPhone Air. Second, if you're paying $1,000 for a smartphone, especially an iPhone, ending the day with only 10 to 20% left is putrid. And I actually had to change my routine at the end of the day simply to end the day with that 10 to 20%. You see, I normally FaceTime my girlfriend every night when I get home from work, or between 8:30 to 9 o'clock at night. But I actually had to use an entirely different iPhone just for that because the iPhone Air simply would have died before we actually got off the phone. So my battery on the iPhone Air probably would have died somewhere between 10 to 10:30 if I hadn't made that change instead of the normal 11:30 to 12 that I normally get out of my phones each night. I even conducted the same test that I did with the S25 Edge last year, where I go on a long trip with a lot of Bluetooth and navigation and heavier use, and it lasted just about as long as the S25 Edge, which is not a good thing. It only lasted until about 5 p.m. Not only is the battery life on the iPhone Air not up to the standard that one should expect after spending $1,000 on a smartphone, but a smaller capacity battery also means that it's going to degrade much faster.
Sorry, mate. Job's a job.
Which means that you'll either have to get the battery replaced sooner or upgrade to a new phone sooner because the battery life on your iPhone Air will begin to suck sooner. What else would you expect from an iPhone with the smallest capacity battery since the iPhone 13? Third, the speakers on the iPhone Air suck as well, to the point that using speakerphone
two-tone design language for the back and frame of the phone. Now the display here is the exact same as the Galaxy A36.
or trying to enjoy content without headphones is virtually useless. And you will notice this if you're the kind of person that likes to listen to music or watch content while you're in the shower. Charging port and speakers on the bottom, and your volume buttons and power button 2026. However, there is a slight customization to your... And then there is the camera. Singular. Because no matter how much Apple tries to spin their Fusion camera system as being as good as having two distinct lenses, while the fruits of this singular camera might be quite sweet, the distinct lack of zoom capability, lack of ultra-wide capability, and diminished light capture because of a slightly smaller sensor are things that any customer paying premium prices for a premium device should not have to deal with today. At least the S25 Edge gives you a real ultra-wide camera, but that phone also costs $100 more than the iPhone Air when that phone first came out. So f that phone too. At the end of the day, I feel like the iPhone Air is the smartphone equivalent of your toxic ex. Might be attractive, might be sexy, might be okay to have some fun with for the time being until you find someone better, but there is absolutely no reason for you to have them in your life at this point because it would just leave you questioning your life choices.
Who are you talking to right now?
So essentially the iPhone Air is like Fiona from Shameless. There is no reality where the iPhone Air is good value for money in any conceivable way.
Would you buy that? None of y'all wouldn't buy that.
You could literally buy any iPhone from the past 3 years and get a better overall experience in every possible way except for in-hand weight. But at least the trade-off for the in-hand weight is better long-term battery life, better speakers, and a fully fledged camera system that is worth the money that you're paying for it. For the exact same price that you would pay for a brand new iPhone Air, you can get a good condition iPhone 15 Pro, a pair of AirPods Pro 2 in good condition, and an excellent condition Apple Watch Series 11 from a reputable site like Back Market, and still have money left for lunch. Not to mention the fact that Apple discontinued the Plus model of iPhones, the 14 Plus, 15 Plus, and 16 Plus, which had just come back 3 years ago after being gone for the previous 5, and were all extremely good and cost-saving alternatives to anyone who wanted a big iPhone without having to pay for a Pro Max and had the balls to charge $100 more for it. Final grade for the iPhone Air, same one I gave the S25 Edge, it's an F. Because this phone is f***ing pointless. Join your friend in the trash now, please. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know I normally leave some shopping links down below, but I truly believe no one should buy this phone. If you agree or disagree with anything that I said in this video, make sure to leave it down below in the comments. And some of my other videos should be floating around the screen right now for you to check out. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.